everyone, welcome to WoWCast. Today we're going to have the Q&A about the War Within. Please introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, I'm Ian Hasekostas, Game Director on WoW.
Hello, my name is Morgan Day. I'm one of the Associate Game Directors on World of Warcraft.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and let's go straight to the questions. Our first question is from Fuser from the Warcraft Community Council, and they ask, in the near future, will a 2024 roadmap be revealed?
I can say that is something we're working on in the near future. Hopefully we can roll it out in the next couple of months. We love the reception, to us pulling back the curtain and setting expectations for what 2023 was going to look like. We're just, buttoning up some final details, but want to have a similar picture that we can lay out for 2024. I can say that even after Guardians of the Dream, that's just rolled out this week, players can expect 3 more updates to Dragonflight before War Within pre-patch. So we'll have all the details.
3 more.
Plans.
Our next question is from AJPST on the WoW subreddit. They ask, what do you guys think about the 3-day early access?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so obviously we've
Actually,
seen a lot of discussion about the early access aspect of the Epic Edition in the last few days. So really where this came from, where this started, was us looking across the board to add value to the expansion bundles at all levels. So starting at the base edition of War Within, compared to Dragonflight, like that includes the boost now, which again was only available in Heroic and up in Dragonflight. It includes Dragonflight itself if you didn't, own that already. So when we increase the value of the base level, we need to also make sure that the increased tiers have their own compelling offerings. And as we considered options, cosmetics, features, access, things like that, one of the things, of course, we paid attention to across the industry is the option of early access as well as beta access. We understand as a live game, as an MMO, as a competitive and cooperative game, there are some unique dimensions to any kind of early access offering here. And there's a little bit of fine print that people have seen on the website, but I want to just elaborate on what that means a bit more. We're really trying to do everything we can to ensure that this is really just a head start on leveling up. You can jump in and work on getting to 80, exploring the world, seeing the story, but Mythic Zero dungeons, weekly quests, things like weekly specialization cooldowns, treasure, the high-end
so they're not going to change it.
Rares, the drop.
That's the answer,
epics,
boys.
all those things that will feel like any kind of long-term competitive advantage are not going to be available during this first few days. For folks who are used to jumping in and just like going hard at an expansion launch, you may be familiar with the fact that those things have already traditionally been locked until the first weekly reset, until Tuesday morning in North America, Wednesday morning in Europe, Thursday morning in Asia. That is staying the same. We're just kind of pulling in that week 0 starting point a bit. The goal here is to make sure that certainly by the time season 1 starts,
so people won't be ready for
2 players with similar play styles side by side, and
weekly
one of them
reset
had early access and the other didn't,
because they got in
really
3 days
can't
late.
Tell which is which in terms of any competitive
Fix that
aspect of the game
problem.
that matters. So
That does not fix the
looking
problem.
to offer increased value where we can, but also roll it out and manage it carefully to make sure that it's fair.
Our next question is from Zayaxlein from Germany, and they ask, if expansions are supposed to be released faster in the future, will that have an impact on the amount of content per expansion? And if not, how do you ensure that the quality and quantity remain the same?
That's a great question. Something we've also heard a lot of discussion around.
Just want to be clear,
obviously, we're focused right now on the War Within, and that's what we're talking about. But as Chris Metzen laid out, we have Midnight and the Last Titan on the horizon. Those are WoW expansions. And we're not trying to, do some game shrinkflation here. WoW expansions are staying WoW expansions.
Look at that,
right?
that new Ironforge looking castle in the background, boys.
New levels, a raid, all of that.
It looks so
stuff.
cool.
Again, not saying much about Midnight, but I can say it's going to have 4 zones, dungeons, a raid, etc. And so really that's what we're holding to. Now, we've made no secret of the fact that we want to reduce lulls and gaps in our content delivery over the years. A lot of the investment we've made in growing the World of Warcraft development team in recent years has been building towards realizing this exact goal, being able to deliver a steady patch cadence, content update cadence like we've seen throughout Dragonflight, while still being on track for a big, ambitious expansion offering on schedule. And when you opt into War Within, you're not just signing up for what's there at launch, you're signing up for a continuation of that frequent Dragonflight-style update schedule. Our main goal is to ensure that we're telling the story without meaningful pauses or lulls, but also at the same time not rushing through it and giving each, whether it's a narrative beat or a raid tier or whatever, the time that it needs to breathe and for players to really enjoy it at their own pace with the next thing on the horizon.
Yeah, and like Ian mentioned, there's 3 more updates coming in Dragonflight. One of those things will be a Season 4, like we saw with Shadowlands. And, that's an opportunity for us to do some fun experimental things, as well as to kind of revisit some of what we saw in Season 4 of Shadowlands. But there's also some kind of awesome surprises coming in there that the team has really been looking at ways to provide really unique experiences to the players and really make sure that Dragonflight is fresh and exciting all the way through as we move into the War Within.
Our next question is from many players around the world, and including myself. Will druids have dynamic flight in all of their flight forms, or some, or will there be a new flight form specifically for dynamic flying for druids?
Can confirm that druids will have dynamic flight in their flight forms. That's how flying is going to work going forward.
Our next question is Watermist from the Warcraft Community Council. Why is static flying not available until level 80 while dynamic flying is immediately available off the bat? May we hear your reasoning for this, please?
Yeah, I can take that one. We actually discussed this quite a bit as we were moving into Dragonflight, but something about dragon riding, it just makes the questing experience a lot more engaging and exciting, and it really changes the way you engage with the world. And also, until you've really mastered it, there's a bit more variance to it, where, with static flight, you can kind of pop up, idle, look around, exactly pinpoint the quest mob, boop, land right on top of it, versus there's a lot more active gameplay with dragon riding, aka dynamic flight. I have to train my brain now.
Yeah, me too.
Dynamic flight. So yeah, we just feel like that's a much more interesting way to engage with the world, especially during level up as you're still exploring. And then we will have static flight unlock not too long after reaching max level. There's probably some really basic things that you might be used to, like explore the world, do some questing. We won't have renown on it. We learned that lesson. And then you'll be able to unlock it very early on in the War Within as well.
Our next question is from Dirty Paws from the Warcraft Community Council. Regarding professions, is the new system we got in Dragonflight staying? Are there any changes coming to what we saw in Dragonflight?
Yeah, totally. So in the War Within, we will have
really cool that all the questions are coming from the Community Council, boys. Those are all people that we really connect with.
In the War Within. Something else we're looking at is inspiration, the stat. We added a bunch of cool new stats for crafting in Dragonflight. And inspiration is one that we've heard a lot of feedback on and kind of keeping an eye on, since ultimately sometimes you have to kind of crit your crafting to make it the most valuable one possible. And if you have to crit, then the crit isn't a crit anymore, it's success. So we're looking at that one. And then lastly, we've seen a lot of great feedback around crafting orders and how people are enjoying that. But if you're not someone who's at the bleeding edge of the crafting system, it can be hard to find crafting orders that you can fill. So we're looking at ways to kind of increase availability of crafting orders. And one of the ideas that we're currently experimenting with, and not sure that this is something that we'll be able to do at the launch of War Within, but we think it's a really fun idea to explore, is the idea of NPC crafting orders, where maybe when you go to the crafting order UI, there'll be someone, the Valdrakken Accord wants you to make some stuff for them because, they're short on swords or something. They broke them all. Something like that could be really fun, so that it increases the audience that can engage with the crafting orders. So those are kind of the areas that we're looking at for War Within.
Our next question is from Verald from Sargeras. How will the Warband's Transmog unlocking work with class-locked items such as tier set tokens?
Yeah, we're still kind of working through the details there, but in terms of the tier set tokens, we imagine that would kind of remain to be soulbound. Certainly that's an area where we're looking to get feedback on. I know there are people who have multiple of one character, so that's definitely, one class. So that's definitely something that we'll be listening to feedback on, but right now the plans are those will stay soulbound, but that doesn't mean if based on feedback we couldn't find some alternative solutions there.
Yeah, I think it's going to vary across legacy content. Set pieces were obtained in some different ways.
Right.
I think if specifically as personal loot or otherwise something is obtained directly as the warrior set, then you'll have to earn that on a warrior. There won't be a way to, when playing your rogue, collect a warrior appearance if it's dropping with class-specific logic. In others, with regard to generalized item drops, though, the goal is just for armor type not to matter.
Okay.
Once you have the item in your possession, if you don't know the appearance will be added to your warband.
Class sets are a fun one, though, because it's changed how those have actually been acquired so many times over the years that the team's really going to have to dig in and look at each individual one and hopefully come up with solutions, but yeah.
I trust them. I believe. Our next question is from Maury.
Until they put Azrin Gold on the Community Council, I don't give a fuck about it.
Not currently. That is not the plan. You will have your warband on across all of your characters. We have discussed certain elements of warbands that maybe you wouldn't want to have available on like a brand new character, right? Like one of those examples is exploration. We know often exploration is actually really helpful when you're leveling a new character to know, wait, where haven't I been, right? So that's one of those kind of unique areas where we've looked at and said, like, actually, this is a space where maybe we don't want to do that just from a pure gameplay perspective. It would actually be less convenient to have that. So definitely looking at areas like that we can look to make adjustments to.
Yeah, I'd definitely be curious to kind of hear a bit more about what's behind this question. Like, if there's someone who's looking to opt out of warbands, what aspect of it would you not want defaulted to being inherently account-wide? Because most of this to us, based on the feedback we've heard from players, certainly over the years, feels like universally desirable convenience. But if we're overlooking something, we definitely like to hear that feedback.
Yeah, I'll be sure to forward that over once I get it. Our next question is from Ravage from the Warcraft Community Council. How will account-wide everything work for people who have multiple accounts on one client? Will each account be separated by their licenses, or will all licenses accounts be included in the Warband account-wide everything?
The members of your warband will span your Battle.net account. So if you have multiple WoW licenses, all of those will share warband benefits. Now, there are some restrictions and limitations when it comes to that particular case. I think for starters, when you're looking at the login screen of character select, you will only see the members of your warband on that WoW account. You can't log into a different WoW account. That's crossing some walls that are pretty hard barriers within our system. Also, if you're actively multi-boxing, there may be some restrictions on interacting with certain aspects of shared Warband systems, like the Warband Bank, for example. If one character on account A is actively using the Warband Bank, account B may find that is currently locked. Again, that's simply just for transactional security and other things along those lines. But if you're just looking to play, make progress toward achievements, earn renown, share transmog, all of those things, doesn't matter whether you're on one WoW account or multiple, as long as they're on the same BNet.
Yeah, there's definitely some solutions that we've discussed. Like for those of you that have been on multiple characters, how only one of them can make progress on your pet battles, because that's a kind of account-wide progress. There'll be similar solutions like that we'll see for a couple different systems, where it's like, okay, this one logged in first, you're the one that kind of has tap to earn certain progress across your account.
All right, our next question is from Severex from the Guild Unleashed. How will account-wide rep work with the opposing factions, such as Frenzy Heart Tribe versus Oracles and the Aldor versus the Scryers?
So for this one, was trying to be very clear on the What's Next panel. The current plan is that our War Within renown and reputations will be shared across the entire account. When it comes to more of those legacy ones, we're still kind of looking into what it'll take to achieve that. But even in that world, there are certain reputations like that are really tied to the fantasy of an individual character, right? Like, oh, this character made a choice. So it's very likely we would keep those one tied to the characters, but then there's also the element of, well, what were the rewards that I got from those choices? And those are the areas we want to make sure that that's shared across your account. So it's more just the fantasy of that reputation with that character, where what you might have gotten from it, we would still want to be able to share across your whole warband.
Yeah, as Morgan said, I think for sure War Within reps will work this way. We hope and aim to make Dragonflight reps also kind of retroactively Warband level, because those feel current and relevant. For new players leveling up in War Within, Dragonflight's going to be the level up experience. But for the dozens and dozens of other reps, it's something we want to do. The answer, just to be clear, it's not this will never work on the Warband level. It's just there's a lot of kind of data archaeology and making sure that we're converting and fixing up things appropriately that needs to be undertaken. We want to make sure we're not losing any data along the way. That's something we want to do, but it will take time.
All right, our next question is from Varlens from France. How many characters can we fit into a warband, and are we limited to one warband per account?
I believe it is 50 characters per WoW account, but like we said, you can have
60
more.
as of Dragonflight.
Oh, 60 as of Dragonflight.
Used to be 50.
I have old info here.
We raised the cap because of those amazing hardcore altaholics out there who had 50 characters, and then we're like, here is Evoker. Delete one of your characters. Okay, let's raise the cap.
So 60 per WoW account, but like we said, you can have multiple accounts in your warband, but only one will share the character select screen. So lots.
That is a lot. That is so much. Nice. Our next question is from the Cat's Meow from the Guild of Garbage. Will Mythic Plus portals be account bound?
Yes, so as of about 12 hours ago, I was talking to the team and felt like yes, in War Within, your portals can be account bound.
All right, our next question is from Roland from France. Can we customize the background of the Warband menu, please?
So this is a request we've heard from a few folks since rolling out that look at the new character select screen. We're gonna have one cool backdrop at launch in War Within. Definitely feedback there is heard loud and clear. We're looking into, I think adding that functionality and customization down the line. It's not gonna be something we can do right at launch, but I think as we've said a couple times, we really see warbands as a foundation to build upon. And so, yeah, like the idea that as you reach a certain warband renown level with a certain group, if you could have their settlement, if you like their vibe, you like their general architecture, if you could unlock using their settlement as your background character select screen, that's the kind of thing we'd love to chase in the future, but not at War Within launch.
Okay. Our next question is from Alistair from Germany. Since you're also revamping the banks through the Warband feature, are there also plans to revise or expand the general bag's bank storage system? Will we finally be able to replace the standard bag?
No plans currently to look at a broader kind of revamp there. Ultimately, often when we hear this feedback, we'll look to try to really look at more tactical solutions, right? Like I think Guardians of the Dream is a great example where we heard a lot of feedback around people's bag space, and the item upgrade system was something that we looked at to kind of help resolve some of the problems there. So, in Guardians of the Dream, those will move your crests and stuff will move into your currency tab. Another one that we talked a lot about was, I mentioned you might need some keys to open some chests and delves, and right from the onset, we were like, okay, please don't make me have a ton of keys in my bag for this. So the team has already talked about having, those keys kind of live in the Delves UI so that you don't have to carry those around your bag. So definitely looking at tactical ways to fix that. And, anytime that people do feel like, there's so much stuff in my bags, that's really great feedback for us to say like, okay, but how are we creating this problem for you? And really looking at that from that perspective versus saying, okay, let's just make your bags bigger and bigger, when in reality, it might be problems that we're creating that we should be solving in different ways.
I will also add, though, that I think the way the OG character bank works is something we want to improve. Our focus right now is just on warband storage. But yeah, I agree that it feels archaic to have to buy a whole set of bags and individually put them in your bank slots when we have examples from the Guild Bank and the Warband Bank of, just a more, streamlined tabbed system, but focuses on warbands for now.
You don't like the bag progression minigame?
I mean, I know tailors love it, but it's maybe not the most elegant thing.
Our next question is from a lot of players all around the world. Is there something more you can do about bag bloat? The Warband Bank sounds like a step in the right direction, but we're still piling up valuable items faster than our bags are growing.
Pretty much what Morgan just said to that. It's something that we've heard probably more than ever over the course of
How can you not just, as the moderator, just really go ahead and skip that question?
On more varied world
doesn't make any sense to me.
Which tends to have localized
we literally just talked about
systems and ecosystems, and you're gathering fragments as part of one event, or you're getting something else that's tied to a vendor as part of another. That can very quickly become overwhelming. We've been actively surveying, looking at what items are most commonly in players' bags and trying to use that to guide our development philosophy going forward. The answer, as Morgan said on the last question, isn't more bag space. At some point, if you have 120 things already, that is an overwhelming amount of stuff. We should be trying to limit what we're asking you to hold rather than just giving you more and more space until you can't even find anything in your own inventory anymore.
A change that we are making in War Within also that will help to a small degree here is we're actually having, this is so exciting for me, but I'm sure most people are like, what are you talking about? Is there will be subheaders within the currency tab. So we can start to do things like say, hey, here are my War Within currencies, and then say, here's Season 1 War Within currencies. And that way you can just say all right, collapse that. I don't want to see all the currency bloat as we've seen in the past. Because, a lot of the time the team does discuss hey, should this be a currency or should this be an item in the bag, or how do we want to deal with that? And often the question is, well, is it evergreen or is it seasonal? And if it's seasonal, we often say, all right, it should be an item in your bag because we don't want that to be bloating my currency tab for the whole expansion. But in War Within, having the ability to have those kind of subheaders will, I think, help a lot in terms of being able to leverage that system more.
All right. Our next question is from Studmuffin from the Guild Guardians of Fates. Will we see the trading post in the next expansion as well?
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's been a fun addition to the WoW ecosystem, right? It's a chance to get a cool range of WoW cosmetics into the, out to the player base of all play styles. We're already planning out a full fun slate of themed drops over the course of 2024. And yeah, Trading Post is here to stay.
I'm sure Studmuffin will be happy to hear that.
Did the sword go live during BlizzCon?
Exactly, yes.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, everyone, I'm sure everyone tuning in to this WoWcast Q&A is ultra informed and already knows this, but one of the fun things we did with the Trading Post was the surprise drop for completing the monthly objective in November of a couple of sort of Sargeras Transmogs that would have been spoilery if they'd been there on November 1st, but a few days later, makes sense.
I love that.
Did you just recognize the sword?
What sword?
I tricked you.
Our next question is from Arbiter from Discord. What about server merging? Right now, most restrictions are lifted, cross-server groups and guilds, item and gold transfer. What?
A few days later, makes sense.
I love that.
Did you just recognize the sword?
What sword?
I tricked you.
Our next question is from Arbiter from Discord. What about server merging? Right now, most restrictions are lifted, cross-server groups and guilds, item and gold transfers, and region-wide auction house. What can we expect in the future?
So, our approach so far has really been to tear down those barriers. Many aspects of the auction house still are realm-based. The commodities portion of it is region-wide. But, there's still a lot of things that are rooted in server, not least of which is everyone's names and their guild names. But really, for now, our focus is on making it not matter what server you're on when it comes to basically any facet of your gameplay. If we reach a point down the line where we fully accomplished that goal, and it really raises the question of why do these exist at all, that's a bridge we would cross, but really our focus is on the player experience first and foremost.
Our next question is from Phenomenon from the Warcraft Community Council. Will there be another stat squish, and if so, what does that look like this time? If another stat squish is enacted, will the team be looking into the after effects that occur in regards to legacy content?
So we're not currently planning on a stat squish for War Within. We're going to have some pretty large numbers, but they're comparable to numbers that we saw in Legion, let's say. We are almost certainly going to do a stat squish again at midnight when we get there. We've gotten better, basically, at doing this over the years. It's less of an ad hoc process and something we have more structure around. So I think I'm confident that we'll be able to better address legacy scaling. And as always, when we roll it out, make sure to roll it out from day one of the midnight alpha, so that we can have all the time needed to get any feedback or catch things we might have missed to make sure that it's not disruptive when it comes to legacy content.
Our next question is from Raining Metal from Discord. Will the nature of the group finders, such as for looking for raids, dungeons, and time walking, ever be made cross-faction?
So there's aspects there that we want to continue to expand. The pre-made group finder is inherently cross-faction for groups that you can form and walk into instances. It's an opt-in activity by design. And I think our plan is to keep it that way, in the sense of avoiding situations where someone is randomly queuing up for something and then just finding themselves in a group with members of the opposite faction in a way that can sort of violate some fundamental boundaries in the rest of the in-world Azeroth fiction. Our focus is on letting people play with their friends, first and foremost. Now, we recognize, though, that there are some activities, time walking probably being the most notable among them, that can only be accessed via queuing. And there, what we would like to do, and we are working on this, is have the ability to say that, yes, if you're a pre-made cross-faction group, you can queue up for any of these queued activities, but that's not quite the same as random matchmaking with people who aren't opting into that cross-faction gameplay.
Our next question is from Rugsy from Discord. Can we expect to see the continuation of expanded character customization in the War Within? Can we expect more than new hair, eye colors coming in the future?
Yeah, I think this is another one of those ongoing projects. I think as we've seen over the course of Dragonflight, some of our updates, additional options for different races as it makes sense. It's something, same with our UI updates and other areas. We want to just keep adding options, keep adding variety. And I think certainly we've learned from Evoker customization, for example, how to offer some more areas of customization that we would love to bring to other player races down the line.
Our next question is from Shalandana from Germany. Why do we travel back in time in Midnight: The Last Titan, and what does this mean? Are we talking about specific zones or an actual complete new old version of the world?
So I think there's a misconception at the root of this question. This is definitely, we're not traveling in time at all. We have just healed the timeways as of Dawn of the Infinite recently. We don't need to venture there anytime soon, promise. When Chris Metzen said returning to the old world, he didn't mean old in the sense of temporal, but actually just returning to these familiar lands that we had visited at times in the past and seeing how they've changed and telling new stories in them. I think one of the things that is really essential for us when it comes to future World of Warcraft storytelling, and that we want to make sure we're able to do, is keep these iconic spaces vibrant and relevant. A world where it's, we've been to Northrend and we told the story of the Lich King there 15 years ago, therefore we can't use it anymore, is not a world that really best serves the Warcraft franchise. So in Midnight, yes, we're going to be returning to the lands of the Blood Elves, the lands around Silvermoon, the lands of Kel'Thalas, and we will see how they have changed in the time since the Draenei arrived and the Blood Elves entered into World of Warcraft in 2007. But also we're going to expand and reimagine them. Same with Northrend in Last Titan. So no time travel here, only moving forward.
I love that.
Yeah, and since I'm sure people will have a thought on a follow-up, we'll absolutely make sure that you can, dynamic fly and kind of traverse around those spaces as you would expect, since right now I know in kind of some of those older spaces that's not currently available, but that's part of the fun of revisiting those spaces is kind of not only bringing them up in fidelity in terms of how they look, but also, like Ian mentioned, making them kind of come to current day in terms of the timelines, as well as allowing all those cool features.
Yeah. Imagine flying north from the Plague Lands and finding yourself in the space north of the Plague Lands without a load screen. Crazy.
Our next question from Zella from the guild Almost Sane. In the deep dive, it was mentioned that some flying mounts would be ineligible for dynamic flight due to animation concerns. Could we get some examples of this?
So I think adding dynamic flight to a mount, so it does require a new custom suite of animations for banking and everything else. For some of our flying mounts, that's more challenging than others. There's some that are just simply more awkward to feel reasonable. Think mechanized or very
Mim's head.
Stuff like that, exactly. And so we're working through that process. Our goal is we would love to eventually be able to say all of them, any mount that can fly can also dynamic fly, but we have some challenges to work through before we can completely commit to that. So just trying to be reasonable and setting expectations. We're definitely going to come out the gates with hundreds of mounts that can do both, but we'd love to get to 100% eventually.
Yeah, I mean, the goal philosophically with mounts is always that they be, a choice. It's a collection. Yeah. It's something that I want to choose based on an aesthetic. We don't want there to be objectively, right or wrong choices when it comes to mounts. So, we really want to get as many of these mounts into players' hands that can dynamically fly, but also, even if we can't quite hit 100%, we feel like it's very awesome to be able to provide a lot of these other cool ones, like we saw Invincible and some other ones in there that were, I'm stoked for those to come out.
It's a big deal. I love it. I'm so excited. Our next question is from Moonfire from the guild Karazhan Chess Club. Love that guild name, by the way. Are Delve Gear Awards going to be done in a raid lockout style, daily Mythic Plus style, or something new?
Yeah, so caveat here, this is all subject to change based on player feedback. We're excited to get this into players' hands with, alpha and beta as soon as possible. Currently, what we're thinking is that you'll be able to run delves kind of as much as you would like. We don't want to have lockouts or anything on those. But as I mentioned, there will be these keys that you can kind of collect, both rare and epic keys. An epic key would probably be something that is, like given from the Aiding the Accord style quest, like on a weekly cadence, where the rare keys you can earn from doing activities in the outdoor world, and those are a bit more repeatable. And the gear would most likely be coming from those big, locked chests. but you would still be able to earn things like reputation, faction, a lot of other stuff from running a delve, as well as just if you want to kind of like see how high you can push in your progression, you'll be able to do that whenever you feel like it. You won't need keys to get in there. So that's the current plan with delves in terms of the rewards and the itemization of how that will flow. And then of course, you'll be able to get gear from the Great Vault from the delves.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the current plan there is that you'll be able to kind of fill that outdoor row bar from doing any number of those outdoor activities. But the like kind of, we call it high water mark, right? How high of the eye level you're going to see from the delve or from the outdoor row would be from, you know, how challenging of a delve you might have done for the week.
All right, our next question from Acha from Alex Draza server. Do the hero spec trees mean we will get some of the old playstyles back, such as dual wield survival hunter or two-hand enhancement shaman?
This is a fun question. As we were talking about hero talents early on, you know, like one of the ideas I loved was, you know, we were talking about priest and we were talking about Anduin, and you know, we saw him in his kind of like battle gear, and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to have a priest in plate armor? Like, look at Anduin, how cool is that? And then the more we got to talking about that, the more we were like, that would cause such massive itemization concerns, right? Like we all meme about like hunter loot, but like the problems that could occur just in terms of like getting gear for different specializations based on, wait, just because you're a different hero spec, suddenly you need this item that I'm not used to people needing. So we wanted to really avoid any of those kind of problems. We do think it's a fun space to explore, but that's not currently something that we would do with hero talents. If we wanted to make a change like that, we would want to make it much more global, so that was a lot more understandable.
Our next question is from Selenis from France. Will archaeology make a comeback in the War Within?
So archaeology, as it's been known in the past, I think the triangulation minigame, I do not think is likely to return in that form. I think when we look at archaeology, we understand, we hear these questions, understand the desire for and the interest in both the fantasy of just uncovering and unearthing aspects of Azeroth's history and the cultures that have lived here for centuries or thousands of years. Also, it's a chance to collect some cool cosmetics and more. So I think we're looking for different vehicles and different outlets for that gameplay, for those rewards. It's not hard to imagine Delve scratching a little bit of that itch as we're journeying with Bran into some of these vaults and locations throughout Khazalgar that we might, in addition to loot and other things, be piecing together some pieces of a larger narrative and relics of the past. And it's something that the team doesn't want to let go of entirely. But the feedback we heard by and large about the triangulation minigame was that it was frankly more tedious than fun. And that was, I think, the majority opinion. I know that there's a minority who loved it, but I think we, in this case, are listening to and are guided by the feedback that we're hearing in aggregate.
There actually will be not archaeology, but a fun feature that is going to help scratch at that itch that Ian was talking about and really dive into some more of the lore of the world in one of those future updates for Dragonflight called Azerothian Archives. Which is, an opportunity for us to kind of take another view at how we might implement something like that. So I'm excited for people to see that, and please give us feedback and if that's something that you enjoy or like and want to see more of. We're always talking about ways to kind of add depth to the world and add, just the discoverability of some of the story of, these spaces that we're visiting to have so much history and life to them, and having ways to discover that is always something that we're talking about. How can we inject into the world?
Yeah, more info on that coming soon.
Our next question comes from Harrison B. from the Wormrest Record server. Going into the War Within, are there measures in place to ensure accuracy with previous storylines?
Yeah, I think yes, always, right? We have a vast team of actual literal, lore historians in our story and franchise development group. We have a fellow by the name of Christopher Metzen, who knows a thing or two about, just the broad arc of Warcraft history. And yeah, just an amazing team of narrative and quest designers and folks who really live and breathe World of Warcraft lore. It's a big, complex space to keep track of. Obviously, we will occasionally miss things. Cue red shirt guy, but by and large, we do everything in our power to keep it all straight and make sure that we're not forgetting anybody. I think something that Taryn Gregory focuses on in particular these days, which is particularly awesome, I think is really tracking and charting the character arcs of all of our major characters, kind of diagramming that out, understanding who's going to be in the background at a given time, who's going to be in the forefront and central to the story, making sure, again, that we're not forgetting anyone and that if we reach a juncture in our narrative where it just really makes sense for a certain character to be there, they would not have sat idly by while something happened. We're going to make sure that we, pay that off and don't neglect it. So, yeah.
And also that they're speaking with one voice, right? When you have a team as awesome and as epic as the World of Warcraft team, there's often multiple people working on individual characters, and making sure that there's consistency across those characters is something that the team's really been focusing on.
I really want to see Terran's document on how he tracks all that.
Yeah, they think Always Sunny whiteboard meme, basically. Pretty close.
All right, we have one last question. It's from Luau from Discord. Any chance on porting the multi-stage casting mechanic from Evoker to other classes? I'd love to see it on KS Bolt.
No plans to extend that out in the War Within. When we have new kind of iconic mechanics like that for classes, we like to kind of keep them sacred for a little while. And we're not quite out of that window yet, but it's certainly something that, trust me, the team has talked about and they're excited to explore in different spaces. There's obvious examples like, Chaos Bolt's a fun one, but also Hunters are one that I've heard the feedback a lot of times, like, can I just pull the bow, more and more? It's very iconic in terms of gaming mechanics. So definitely something we're talking about, but not something that we're looking to extend in the War Within.
Thank you so much, guys, for talking about the War Within today.
And thank you all for the amazing questions. This is really just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's so exciting for us to pull back the curtain, show everyone what we've been working on and what's coming your way next year. I know there's many more questions out there. We're going to keep looking to get information out to all of you and just kind of continue the conversation as we move ahead towards Alpha in the spring.
Yeah, what he said. Thanks for being here.
So I think what really stood out there was, one, they're continuing with the 3-day early release. Two, warbands seem to be like a really, really big thing, and delves in this expansion, which we'll see how they work out. I'm sitting here looking at my World of Warcraft classic character login screen, and my guy's sitting here in Stormwind. And it's going to be weird for, all these, if you're an orc, you're in Razor Hill, or if you're an troll, you're in the Darkspear Isles, or if you're a gnome, you're kind of near Noamorgan and all that type of stuff. I'm sad to see that go, because it really kind of gives each race kind of their own like feeling. And I think that doing like the login screen where you have all your characters in one spot is really going to take away from it. But if they give us some options and some different things in that area, I guess it could be cool. Go ahead and move on to the classic stuff, I think.
Don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to have a Q&A with the Warcraft Classic team. Let's jump into a Q&A with the Classic team. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I am Ana Resendes, one of the 2 lead software engineers in the World of Warcraft Classic team.
Hi, I'm Clay Stone, Associate Production Director on the WoW Classic team.
And I'm Tim Jones. I'm the Assistant Lead Game Designer on the World of Warcraft Classic team.
Thank you for joining. Let's go straight into the questions now. Our first question is from many players all around the world. Why didn't you announce Wrath Era realms?
We in the Classic team is the moment where we're having the most offerings we have ever had in the past. We get to have the new season coming up, Hardcore. You can also go to the Classic Era servers, Wrath of the Lich King, and then Wrath of the Lich King is going to be moving into Cataclysm. So when thinking about all these offerings that the Classic team has at the moment, we were very conscious about not wanting to further fragmented the population.
Yeah, and spread themselves way too thin too.
Journey. So we currently don't have plans to do so. That said, on the technical side, when we implemented Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, we were like super focused to make sure that whenever we want to bring those experiences again, it's going to be not such a hard time as it was the first time. Like, we implemented it with in mind that it's going to come back at some point.
Our next question is from McCulloch from the EU server of Ravencrest. Can you please share more specifically what is your current idea on the increased leveling speed from 1 to 80?
Yeah, so, whenever we bring an expansion like Burning Crusade or Wrath Classic, and now Cataclysm Classic, we feel like we have a really good opportunity to sort of reframe that expansion, and that's sort of where the genesis for a lot of our hashtag some changes come from. And when we think about the leveling speed, we think about Cataclysm specifically, there's a renewed focus on Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor and that level 1 to 60 journey. That the level 60 to 80 journey being spent in Outland and in Northrend kind of doesn't feel like it's a part of. So what I would expect is for that level 1 to 60 journey with its hundreds of new quests, we expect a lot of players to be there, either brand new players or returning players. And we might not make as many adjustments to that 1 to 60 portion, although I will say we've been incredibly pleased with how well Joyous Journeys has been received every time that we've been able to bring it back for Wrath. It's actually live right now in Wrath Classic. So I would expect to see that from time to time for that level 1 to 60 journey. But the focus, I think, of our leveling changes there are really going to be focused on that Outland and Northrend experience before players return from Northrend at level 80 to complete their level 80 to 85.
That's awesome. Good.
In the main
that was a weird gap
of Azeroth. So I would expect to see just some experience increases there, similar to what you would see with Joyous Journeys. Not to take away from any of the content in those level bands, but certainly to get people a little bit quicker to that 80 to 85 portion once they reach that section.
Our next question is from Tom L. on ATH server. What will be done to make guilds more accessible and useful in Cata?
Yeah, so this is another one where when we look back at the original Cataclysm, there's two sort of components that we think about guilds from. One, making smaller guilds more viable or on more of an equal playing field as the larger guilds. And then two, reducing some of the toxicity that was kind of introduced back then. If we look at that one first, there was a guild perk that existed where for however many members you had within your guild, every time that they would loot gold, the guild would receive a portion or a percentage of that.
Real quick, also, this is just, I don't have anything against this girl. I think she's done it awesome, other than that one question that she should have skipped. But how? She's got to be really, really run thin doing both the retail versions of like covering all this stuff and the classic versions. So I hope she's got more help than just herself. I would guess that she does, but.
And so it basically then made it super impactful or important for a lot of guilds just to spam invites and try to get as many members as possible. Right. I think that's certainly one area that we want to address. And then the other section on the smaller guilds, there are guild experience caps, both daily and weekly, and challenges that players are being tasked with to overcome on a weekly basis. And the larger guilds have a much easier time being able to do that. So I would expect that as we look at what we can do there, I would expect that some of those challenges or experience gains or the ability to reach those experience caps may be adjusted so that smaller guilds can participate in that and unlock some of the perks on a more equal playing field as the larger guilds.
All right, our next question is from Awesome on the Paggle server. Can we expect to see the return of the Disenchantment button when items are being rolled out?
Yeah, short answer, yes. We're planning on doing that on Cataclysm.
Nice.
Oh, that's a short answer.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes.
Can be as simple as that.
Yeah. Our next question is from Lilyberry on Grobula server. Is there any solution coming in Cata for the gear score meta making it impossible to gear up alts? Because I get constantly rejected by groups.
Yeah, there's a lot of content that was both part of Wrath of Lich King Classic, like the Titan Rune dungeon system. It really allowed players to continue to explore dungeon groups now through the random dungeon finder. There's more ease for players to get into that and find groups easily, and really get the items that you need to be able to eventually jump into raids.
Yeah, and this is something that we're gonna keep monitoring towards, not just when Cataclysm starts, but also when the pre-patch comes in, and a lot of people might be coming back to the game and trying to experience all of the content. So we're gonna be looking into it and making sure that we're always on the looks of finding ways that it could potentially ease that. Like as Tim mentioned, the Titan Rune dungeons is kind of an idea of that, and there's always like different steps to get there. We know that Titan Rune dungeons, we acknowledge that they might be a little bit of a steep step for a newer character, so you can always start, your journey going into normal dungeons or the heroic versions eventually, or through PvP and getting some gear so you're ready for those catch-up mechanics that we have, like the Titan Rune dungeons. That will be coming into Cataclysm in a different form.
Our next question comes from SageMan1923 on the Classic WoW subreddit. Could we possibly get a roadmap of the future level caps?
Yeah, so Season of Discovery and the level caps. I guess just to recap sort of what those level caps are, we're starting at level 25. After level 25, we're going to raise the level cap to 40, we're going to raise it to 50, and then we're going to raise it to 60, and of course have all of the endgame content after 60. When we think about the timing for those, we're not ready just yet to say when they're coming. There's an element of flexibility in there that we want to be able to maintain. Part of the inspiration for this was back when the original Classic beta was live prior to its launch in 2019. It was so cool to see the new metas that developed and what an endgame at level 30,
that was cool,
or level
man.
40, I think it was, where the two.
I wish I
level
could have
caps were used,
participated
what that
more.
looked like. So when we think about the roadmap and the timetable for when we'll be increasing these level caps for Season of Discovery, we really want to give enough time for that meta to develop and for players to be able to experience that end game at each of these level caps. So you won't have to wait too long, but we want to give it a little bit more time to see how the first one at level 25 performs, and kind of use that as a basis for when we want to start moving on to the next ones.
Our next question from Asadai on the Crom Crush server. Will content from previous level caps remain relevant from chapter to chapter as the level cap is increased?
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of lame ass shit is this? This is the World of Warcraft.
Level up.
They're talking about SOD, buddy.
We're adding new things to the outdoor world, and even as phases progress and people jump in that weren't playing in phase 1, or people making alts because they can't wait to see what kind of runes that other classes have to offer. They're going to be leveling through Azeroth again, and the new content, the new rune discoveries that we added to zones all throughout the world, people get to experience that. So that will definitely be relevant content to the level up experience all throughout the lifespan of Season of Discovery. We also hope that the content like our level up raids, that people feel comfortable incorporating those into their level up journeys. Mm-hmm. So if you're in phase 2 or beyond and you can get a group together in your mid 20s, then why not run Black Fathom Deeps a couple times, get a couple great pieces of gear and use that to help level yourself up.
Get one of those like new items that we're creating.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, our next question is from Malzar with the guild Jolly Roger. They ask, is it reasonable to assume that classic raids will eventually come to Season of Discovery as well, such as being able to acquire Atiash?
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. So many of those raids are so iconic, we absolutely want to include them. I think at this point, thinking about the Season of Discovery twist on everything, it's possible that they could also come with some changes. When we think about that, we think about some of the work that we did on Season of Mastery as kind of being within the realm of adjustments or additions that we might make to them. But on the flip side, we're still discussing it, and we recognize that players' characters that'll be coming to each of these are going to have access to tons of new abilities. And that's kind of going to bring a fresh spin on these raids as they exist without any changes or additions. So something that we're still in discussion on, but the raids will absolutely be there.
Nice.
Malvazar has a second question, and they ask, are there any plans to introduce any new legendary items for Season of Discovery, such as the original Ashbringer or Frostmourne?
It's a big maybe. You know, I think we're so excited to explore sort of the unfinished storylines or quests that abruptly ended, like what's behind the gates of Timbermaw Hold in Azshara, or why does the quest line for the Shade of Aranicus gem abruptly end in Winterspring? We're super excited to explore continuing those storylines or quests when it's appropriate and when it is respectful of content that was eventually explored in future expansions.
Our next question comes from Sir Thunderpaws on the Classic WoW subreddit. What are you going to do to address gold inflation, gold buying, and botting?
Please say something.
Something,
please.
This kind of activity and the impact that it has is incredibly important to us. Not just as developers of the game, but
We haven't
also
really
as
felt
players
that, though,
of
guys.
the game ourselves. So it's something that the team is incredibly focused on, almost nonstop. You know, when we think about this, and we think about the tools that we have at our disposal, it gets challenging to get into specifics on it, because the more that we talk about it and the more that we talk about how we work on this or the areas that we work on to help address it, the more self-defeating it can become because of that level of insight that we're giving into it. So I would say that I'm sure some players have noticed the occasional instance where an instance might close for a little bit with not very much warning, and then may reopen. Those could be areas where some of our team are making some changes due to some activity that we've seen in those spaces. I think part of the challenge really is that communication problem that we come across. We're trying to find ways.
Part of the problem is you guys don't have the game masters in the game like coming and taking care of this shit anymore. Like you don't have the number of people that you need on this guys. Like you can't just constantly think about it and like cherry pick where you're gonna like try and fix stuff. Like you gotta put game masters into the game.
Ways to be more communicative about our efforts. One of the things that we started doing several months ago is working with our community team to post the monthly number of accounts that have been actioned to kind of give some of that visibility into the work that our team and our partner teams are doing in this area. I think bottom line, we recognize that this is a battle. And we recognize that it's a battle that's
make something similar to the WoW Council. If you guys are so into doing WoW Councils, do one for like make certain players game masters and give them a little bit of domain over getting rid of some of the bots and stuff, or at least like, I don't know, star their names when a bot report comes in or something, man, just something.
Not going to stop, but we are up to the challenge. This is one that we are not going to stop fighting. The team is committed to it. Our partner teams are committed to it. And we're going to use all the tools at our disposal and our evolving tactics to continue addressing it.
Yeah, I
Good.
mean, in the
I'm glad to
technical
hear
side
that
of things, we're
they're continually
always
working on it at
looking
least.
into
That's good.
different options on how to increase, all of the code.
Because you know who it
and
really
systems
affects
that
the
we have.
most? These three right here. These three right here, all their time and effort and work is absolutely thrown in the garbage by these people that are botting and buying gold and all this bullshit, man. And they have to have the resources necessary to take care of this shit, because if they don't, it's never gonna end. Man.
Have in place, and it's always part of like our tasks that we always are looking into, and we work really closely with you know, the
You need
modern
a you need
side
a
of the
fucking
game to
you need a task force for this shit. A force, a police force, a something to take care of these assholes that are fucking with our game.
because to kind of have a concrete and like unified front into this battle.
Our next question comes from the BG Hero on the Classic WoW subreddit. How do you plan to balance factions for World PvP and Season of Discovery?
Yeah. So this is a fun one. I want to start kind of just talking about servers or realms for a second. I don't think a lot of players realize, because we've only talked about it once or twice publicly, but when we were developing hardcore realms, we were actually able to develop quite a bit of technology and new methods to raise the realm caps for the number of concurrent players that we can have connected to a single realm at a time, quite substantially. So when you look at the number of realms that we launched with on hardcore, it may seem like there's only a couple, but they can actually hold a far greater number of players at a single time than we had ever previously been able to achieve on previous classic realms.
That is dope.
So that's certainly something that we want to employ when it comes to Season of Discovery. It's kind of like we want to do as few realms as possible while still being able to get everybody in who wants to play.
That's so
that being
cool.
said, I'm also not
Good
an
for them,
engineer,
man.
so Anna, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that or about the PvP side of things and how that's going to
Yeah, I mean, we hope that with these, the population kind of regulates a little bit more, knowing that like with less options to choose from, we have seen these in data before, right? When there's not as many servers to choose from the beginning, kind of like the factions start balancing a little bit more. So that's our hope with all these improvements that we're doing. The other thing too is that the World PvP event that it's currently being developed, well, actually it's ready to go for
World PvP event.
25. It actually doesn't start until both factions get to a certain threshold. So
that's cool.
We're hoping that when the event starts, it's going to be at a balanced place and a balanced battle. And of course, we're going to be keeping a close eye on it and just making sure, like, hey, is this working? Do we need to do any adjustments to the World PvP event that might, you know, help that balance and keep that balance and making it fun, right? Like, because we want it to be fun. So yeah, we're kind of like keeping an eye on the server population, plus also the new events and all of those kind of things, and keeping the faction balance on mind.
I look forward to watching those streams on that World PvP event.
Yeah.
That's
it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's like what's so much fun about Classic is that it's like, I think of PvP in Classic as being like World PvP and those like epic battles with a bunch of people out there in the world. So it's gonna be really fun. Very excited.
Our next question comes from Arithma from the Guild After Dark. Are there any plans to buff and or tune both instance and open world content to make up for the large number of buffs coming to every class?
Yes, absolutely. You know, we want the world of Classic to feel both exciting and challenging to players, and especially as we're adding new content to the open world, really encouraging people to go into all the nooks and crannies of different zones looking for these new runes. Players are going to get a decent amount of power from those runes, and so we want to not one-to-one counterbalance the difficulty of outdoor content. We want players to feel an increase in power, but we within reason. So where it's appropriate, we have the power to adjust the HP and the damage of creatures in the outdoor world. Now, as for tuning of our raids, we also want our raids to be challenging. We also want them to be approachable, but especially for rewards, we want to make really cool items and rewards for people to be excited about and go after in these dungeons. And so we want the challenge of the bosses to reflect the power of the rewards that we're handing out.
Our next question comes from RoarG90 on the WoW Classic subreddit. Is there a possibility we can see two-handed enhancement shaman viable as DPS?
You know, the modifications necessary to make both. There's a lot of modifications necessary to make both two-handed enhancement shamans and dual-wield enhancement shamans viable. For Season of Discovery in particular, we've focused more on modeling after the Burning Crusade version of enhancement shaman. We're keying off of runes like Lava Lash and dual-wield specialization. To get two-handed enhancement shaman working properly, we'd probably have to add like a 5th rune to some of the armor slots to make that work. You know, that's not in our plans currently, but it's an intriguing possibility. And, you know, on the Classic team, we're always listening to feedback of our players. So if that's something that players are passionate about and want, please tell us.
Oh, we will. Just you wait. Just you wait.
They will.
Our next question comes from Beth F. on Senjin. Will there be a Scarlet Monastery raid?
Just be a yes. Just be a yes.
You know, the content that we mistakenly teased at BlizzCon, it really represents just a huge aspirations that we have on the Classic team. You know, the treatment that we gave the Black Fathom Deeps raid, it represents just what we're willing to do to existing content. I'm so excited for players to be able to see our discoveries that they didn't get to see at the convention or BlizzCon, because they're really a great example of the level of detail and care and love that we're putting into making brand new content. And all of that to say, there's a deep desire among us on the Classic team to make brand new, never before seen Classic raid content for Season of Discovery. There's nothing to announce at this time, but we're definitely excited and have big aspirations.
Our next question comes from Felich on Kazakh. In Season of Discovery, will I be able to find runes that make Smite Holy Priest DPS viable, or is Holy Disc meant to be healers?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the beauties of Season of Discovery and like having all these rune systems is that the runes are not specialized depending on what talents you choose. So there's like certain runes that if you read about them, they're more like DPS focused, like homunculus. And then there's other ones that are more healer-based focus, like penance or prayer of mending, right? But the idea is that you can mix and match them all, right? So you can be a discipline priest or a holy priest and go and pick the more on the shadowy side, on the DPS side, and there's nothing stopping you. So you can go and still heal with your abilities, but then also pick some of the DPS ones and still have the same ability as them. And on the opposite side too, right? If you're playing a shadow priest, maybe you also want to have a penance here and there and like play with it, and maybe you're even more of a hybrid of a healer / DPS.
Our next question comes from Marcos from the guild From the Ashes. I heard on a stream that with Season of Discovery, the sky is the limit. If so, what is the most radical change you'd be willing to implement?
That's a great question, Marcos.
They're gonna let us cleanse.
We really want to double down on the
unholy
philosophy
Ashbringer
of the world as the main character in Season of Discovery. And you know, the beauty of getting to work on level banded content phases as a designer is that we get to focus on one section of the game at a time as it's relevant to players while they're leveling up. And whether that content, you know, manifests itself as outdoor world PvP or new world bosses, new rewards, new contests, we're gonna do our best to figure out where that content fits best within our new level banded content phases.
Our next question comes from Viaprax on the EU server Stormreaver. For the season server, will racials be rebalanced?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. You know, racials are incredibly important to, you know, solidifying the fantasy of the character that you're playing. Whether you're a Tauren with Warstomp or an Undead with Will of the Forsaken, it really defines your character. But at the same time, we we know that a lot of people choose certain races because it's the optimal choice, and we know our classic players, they love choosing the optimal choice. So with that said, we're not going to do anything specifically to racials as they currently exist on characters. However, some of the things that players rely on racials to do, certain stat bonuses like weapon skill that orcs and humans get with axes and swords and maces, we aim to assist with where people have access to those stats through the rewards in our level up raids and discoveries that people find while leveling. So people won't feel forced to, get the Edge Master's handguards in order to be viable if you chose the race that you want to play because you like their racial abilities or you just like how they look. Another topic on the point of racial abilities is priests. Priests have a wide variety of unique racial abilities specific to their race and class. And one of the things that we haven't really gotten into details about in Season of Discovery are the rune acquisitions themselves and how some classes have some very unique ceremony associated with learning their runes. And priests are one of those. They'll be encouraged to go into the world and learn about the religions and the faiths of the different races of Azeroth. And so this is not planned for the level 25 phase, but in future phases, we're open to exploring, priests perhaps getting access to the priest racials of other races,
Okay.
in the journey of that religious exploration that they have to do.
All right,
a good
we
way
have
to
one
do it.
last question, and this is from Tyranny533 on the Classic WoW subreddit. Will Season of Discovery end with server wipes like Season of Mastery, or will servers stay open for future content once the level 60 phase is out?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We're really excited to have the level content phasing that we're planning for Season of Discovery. So we're really hoping to get an idea of how players are interacting with the content through this. I mean, right now it is a season, right? So it is set up to be temporary. We always guarantee you that you're gonna be able to keep the characters that you create one way or another. How that's gonna look, it's not solidified yet. We're still talking, and we're gonna be seeing, as I mentioned, monitoring through all these phases, seeing how people are engaging, see what people love the most. So then we can find these
Man, I really
characters
like
in
this
place,
girl.
right?
I really like.
so
I like that she's in charge of stuff.
Keeping an eye on it. We don't have final plans on it, but we guarantee you that your character is going to be able to go one way or another. And of course, if there's like something that everybody just loves so much and they don't want to see gone, we're definitely going to talk about different options on how we can allow players to keep having the fun that they're having. Yeah.
That wraps up our Q&A session. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Cool. I'm glad to see that they're doing a bunch of that type of stuff. I think it's going to be really good for the game, to be honest. Glad to see that they have they've thought a lot about this. This isn't just an offshoot of, hey, classic hardcore was doing really good, let's do that now. This has been in works for years, so, or at least a couple years, I think. So anyways, guys, I will be back on in a little while. Me and Kaylee are gonna go to an art fair, sounds like. So I'm gonna go try to find a little inspiration in that and come back and continue leveling tonight. So hopefully you guys will join me. Thanks for watching that with me, and we'll see you guys next time.